In an ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. We are going to have such a great conversation today about not just about scarcity and exclusivity and how to create trial and how to use a book to market for yourself for the add-on sales, but also about human psychology, the human brain, how to develop yourself as a dynamic coach to do way more than you think you can. My guest today is Keith Ellis, who's a best-selling author and the #1 superpower coach in the world. See, I didn't even know there would be 2 superpower coaches, so I got to ask Keith about that too. He helps entrepreneurs achieve impossible goals, and we're going to talk about that today. Keith, thanks for jumping on into my insanity.
Delighted to be here. Thanks for having me, Emanuel.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get into this. I loved how you originally released the book and were able to set it at a price that grabbed attention, and then created some trial. In addition to that, by being able to download and interact with the book. So it's cool with the price theory. And then I understand you've made some adjustments to your price theory and your offer once you hit the market. So talk a little bit about that process.
Well, so I brought this book out. Actually, the book comes out this month. And the what I had set the price at was $10,000. It's the first $10,000 book I'd ever heard of. And it got a lot of interest in the marketplace. It sort of broke through the noise in the market, if you will. You might immediately think, I'm not interested in a $10,000 book, but part of you has to say, what would be worth $10,000, right?
Absolutely.
And the truth is, we've all read books that were worth $10,000 in our lives. We just didn't pay that much for them. Right. And so I just thought I'd try something different and then include my coaching program with the book. The coaching program was free. You paid for the book. People thought that was a great idea. But the problem was that I would get on a podcast or a show or a TV show or whatever it would be I'd be interviewed on, and we'd end up talking about the price more than about what's in the book. And really what I want people to focus on is the idea of the title of the book is How to Make the Impossible Easy. And I really teach people how to do that. Full disclosure, you've been doing it your whole life, and the folks in the audience have been doing it their whole lives. But we don't understand it as a process, and we haven't been giving ourselves credit for it. So really what I'm doing is trying to say, hey, that you've got this in you. I guarantee you. I can point out to things you've done that were impossible. And then what if you could do more? And that's really what this is all about. That's a good point of departure for discussing the book and what I am interested in.
Well, as the marketing nerd that I am, I love that you ready, fire, aimed, right?
Yep.
You had a concept, you pushed it out there, you got some market feedback that was different than what you had hoped for, and so you pivoted, which is really it's a critical lesson for professional marketers to say, we're not smarter than the marketplace. Sometimes our ideas are good. Sometimes they give us bad outcomes, and we got to be able to make an adjustment midstream.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about market testing, right?
Sure.
That's the beautiful thing of being alive today and having the internet and being in the marketing business, which is you can test anything, and if it works, if people respond to it, great. If they don't, then they're right, you're wrong. That's the first piece you have to get together in the mindset. The other thing about the pricing that is of interest, what changed wasn't so much the marketing. What changed was the book. because as I was writing this book, after I was finishing up the last 3 or 4 months when I was promoting this $10,000 book idea, and the book. How do I say this in a way that doesn't sound like I'm an egotistical maniac? But I'll say that anyway. The book was better than I thought it would be.
Oh, okay.
And
Nice.
what if I'm selling a book for $10,000, then only a handful of people will ever read it, right?
Sure. Yep.
And that seemed like a waste. There are a lot of people who've read my other books. They would be cut out unless they wanted to, pay the 10 grand. And there are only so many people who are interested in doing that. So as I wrote this book and finished it, it was kind of like, wow, I really want to share this with the world. I'm not going to do that very successfully at 10 grand, just from the book point of view. So now it'll be on Amazon. People can get it anywhere they want, and they can get into it as much as they want. They can get into the book, buy the book, or they can do that and do the coaching program as well, which we can work out that.
Well, explain to me a little bit about the underpinnings of the philosophy that you're using to help people get more out of their life and then what they think is possible. Is it psychology? Is it philosophy? Is it spirituality? And what's the underpinnings of all this concept?
So we'll leave the spirituality out, not because I'm not a spiritual person, but because that's not what I'm teaching in this. There are other people who are far more qualified to teach that. I'm really talking about how people think, that how they think about their thinking. That's a phrase that I got from a guy named Dan Sullivan, who's one of the, I would call him a virtual mentor. I've never met Dan, but I've read a lot of his books, and he has some terrific advice about all kinds of things that have to do with marketing and entrepreneurs and about thinking. And he and I think similarly, as it turns out. And I've been teaching people how to how to focus their thinking with something called magic questions. Magic questions are really at the heart of every success system. There's a certain form of question, certain way of asking it. Everybody uses it. Well, whether you're reading Socrates or listening to Tony Robbins or Dan Sullivan or anybody else, they all use magic questions. They don't call them magic questions, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. Questions still work. And I just put that together into a book that I called, surprisingly, Magic Questions, and really focused on that. And then when I added the piece of impossible to it, it really was intriguing. And what I realized, part of this has to do with AI, which is obviously in your wheelhouse. And I was diving deeply into AI in my business, and just out of curiosity, I've been in computers. My career, my day job for many decades was in the computer business.
Gotcha.
And I loved it. I still love it. I'm a total nerd, geek, whatever you want to call it. And AI is, of course, leading that charge right now. So the more I learned about AI, the more I realized, look, what makes that work is prompt engineering. There's a whole industry that's come out of this, where there are people who are expert prompt engineers. If you can prompt your AI machine, your AI engine appropriately, you'll get useful results. And I realized that what I've been teaching for the last 30 years is prompt engineering for human intelligence. And these magic questions are really at the heart of that. How you ask yourself a question in a way that you get the results you want from your brain. Where the impossible fits in is we sabotage ourselves right out of the gate all the time, because we think of something we'd really like. Oh man, yeah, I would like to have a house on an island like Richard Branson does. That would be so cool, but that's impossible. And immediately we go, okay, the brain says, we're not going to go there. He's not interested in that. And when I'm teaching people, I had to figure this out on my own end, obviously, and found out it worked. What I'm teaching people is, if you find something that you think is impossible and commit to it, all the fog clears away and your brain suddenly goes, oh, I guess he's serious about this now. I'll help him get it. And it starts trying to figure out how to get it. And it's like magic. The clarity of focus is incredible once you find something that you genuinely believe is impossible for you and you commit to it.
So yeah, you're triggering that reticular activating system, right?
Exactly.
By saying, hey, this is something I want. And then all of a sudden, all the pathways open up and you start to see the small steps as they appear, right?
Well, yeah. What you see typically, you commit to something that you think is impossible. What you see are obstacles, which is one of the reasons you think it's impossible.
Yeah.
But one of the things I teach is that obstacles are the raw material for your success. Obstacles are essentially a roadmap. If you think of something impossible, something you really, really want, but you think it's impossible, and then you say, you know what, I'm going to commit to that anyway. The minute you commit to that, then the map sort of appears in front of you. I can just imagine this in a movie, just and all these obstacles in front of you. But the obstacles are like a GPS guideline to where you need to go. And all you need to do is consume those obstacles, turn them into progress.
Right.
And before you know it, you actually have achieved the impossible. So it's exactly what you're talking about. Your brain goes into a place that you've been at many times, whether you've been aware of it or not, the reticular activating system, and it just goes out and says, okay, let's figure out how to do this. First, here are the dominoes we need to knock over, right? And let's go after them.
Love it. Just give me a little insight into some of the impossible things you've done in your life by following this process.
Well, so impossible. There's a famous quote. It was attributed to Muhammad Ali for many years. He didn't say it. It was part of an ad campaign, oddly enough, that he was featured in. And the quote is, "Impossible is not a fact. It's an opinion.
Right.
Impossible's a point of view." And when you realize that, and you realize that when I say something's impossible, I'm not talking about the violating the laws of the physical universe, traveling faster than the speed of light or being in two places at the same time. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff at all. I'm talking about what you think is impossible for you, and that's an opinion. And you're absolutely right about it. If you believe something is impossible for you, it is.
Right.
And what impossible means is if you think something is impossible, you believe you are incapable of it. And what I ask people right at the start of when we're in a coaching session or in a teaching session, seminar, whatever it is, I always say, okay, you're incapable of doing this thing that you really want. What if you increased your capabilities? And it's amazing when people hear that. It's like the simplest thing in the world. They go,
Right.
oh, okay, if I increase my capabilities, maybe it's not impossible. They don't even know how to process that at first.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what happens. So I'll give you an example of something I did that probably no one else in history has ever done. I was probably 9 or 10 months old, crawling around on the carpet, and I kept trying to walk. And I kept falling down, and I kept trying to walk, and I kept falling down. Walking was, and obviously I'm joking about this because everybody goes through this, right? It's not something that I'm the only person in history who's done. We all go through this process where walking, we're at a stage in our life, walking is physically, emotionally, and psychologically impossible for us.
Yeah.
And we keep trying it. We are committed to it. Now, this is instinctive. We don't have a lot of choice in the matter. And that instinct keeps going. It goes for walking, it goes for talking, learning to read, learning to write. And that same process, that same instinct helps you learn how to ride a bike, drive a car, all this stuff. And then you reach some point in your life where you stop growing. And it's physically, and I define that as you don't get any taller. Okay.
Right.
Some of
reality's operations.
Yeah, exactly. And some of us have grown a little wider through the years, but not taller.
Yeah.
So you get to this point where you stop growing, but the instinct for this impossible is still in you. But since you're not doing all those things and it doesn't come automatically anymore, you just kind of ignore it. But if you take the same process, the same idea of, I want this so badly, I'm going to commit to it, your brain will go, okay, we'll make that happen. And it does it. So it's really taking this instinct that we all have, and we all have many examples of doing this in our lives. It's taking this instinct and saying, that doesn't turn off when you're 18 or 16 or 20, whenever you stop growing. It's still there. You can still tap into it. So I teach people how to do that.
That's amazing. Well, let's say I wanted to be a single digit handicap golfer, but
Okay.
I don't want to practice 10 hours a week. So to me, that is kind of sets up the impossible, right? Because we know if you want to be good at golf, you got to get on a regimen, you got to get lessons, you got to practice every day, blah blah blah. Is that something that we can tune in on?
Absolutely, if you're committed to it. The trick is, well, let's take that. Take what you just said, because I love that as an example. Um, if you're committed to getting your hand, you want to be a scratch golfer, you want to be at single digits, however you refer to it, and you don't want to practice 10 hours a week. So at some point, you have to decide which part of that you're committed to. Are you committed to the scratch? Are you committed to the 10 hours a week, right?
Right.
Because one will lead to the other. So I'm not proposing in any of this any shortcuts, right? If
Right.
if I'm going to be a concert, if I want to be a concert pianist, and like every other concert pianist who's ever lived, except for maybe Mozart, a handful of others, I have to practice, 30 hours a week or whatever it is. I'm not short circuiting that physical process, really.
Right.
All I'm doing is saying, if you want to do this and you think it's impossible, you have to do it. So the answer, I can't answer the question for you. You can't answer the question until you try this, until you commit to it. But once you commit to it, things start changing in your brain. You start finding ways to do it. You start finding resources you didn't know you had. Okay, there are teachers, there are trainers, there are physical devices that can help me become a better golfer. All of those potentially can work. And how much time do you want to invest in doing those things, and how much money? Not incidentally, golf is not a cheap date. Um, and and you get to some point and you realize, I actually can do this, but maybe. So that what was impossible now begins to be impossible. It really needs, I'm sorry, begins to be possible. It really needs to feel impossible when you start out, or else you're not being ambitious enough. If somebody says, okay, I want to grow my business, if I want to double my business, because I specialize in dealing with entrepreneurs. Somebody says, I want to double my business. I say, do you think that's possible? I go, yeah, I think I can do it. Then it's not ambitious enough. How about
Right.
how about 10x? Because the subtitle of my book is The Astonishing Secret of the 10x Superpower. I assign 10x as a number, as a placeholder for impossible, because it's a quantity. It's something people can wrap their brains around, right? If I just say, okay, I can help you achieve the impossible in your life, you go, okay, I wonder what that means. But if I say, I can help you, fill in the blank, have 10 times better relationships, have 10 times better health, have 10 times more customers, have 10 times more revenue, whatever. Now we're sort of talking about something that is way out there, 10 times growth, but you can wrap your brain around it. So it's still impossible for most people, but they wrap their brain around it. So in any situation, once you've wrapped your brain around the impossible, you're committed to it, and your brain starts making it happen, then you proceed. So in your case, with that specific goal, you would try to figure out, I wonder if the 10 hours a week is possible, or the less than 10 hours, whatever it is. You don't know until you try. I would think that would make you a pretty dang good golfer, actually. And it also depends on whether you play a lot of golf, or you hit a lot of shots at the driving range or on the putting green or whatever, working on technique and stuff, or whether you're out there just hanging out with your friends, drinking a beer and trying to get a birdie.
Yeah, I love it. What are some of the things that you found in marketing your book that you've found to be successful on this go around this book?
Okay, one thing successful. We can talk about AI. I really wanted a newsletter, and I started thinking about it. It wasn't impossible, but it was. I didn't have the time to do it, which meant I had to hire somebody to do it. And then I started thinking about what I wanted the newsletter to be. I wanted it to be people who have achieved the impossible, telling their stories, telling how they do it, right?
Sure.
Not just a bunch of how-to stuff. That's okay too, but I really wanted some interesting juice there, and really a newsletter unlike anything else I'd ever read before. So then I started thinking, okay, I need more than one person. I need a staff, and it got to be this big budget exercise. Like, do I really want to invest in this? Is that taking the business where I want it to go? And then I found an AI tool that creates the newsletter for you. It doesn't write it, because I didn't want AI to write something for me.
Sure.
It sources it. You engineer a prompt for it with, they have a questionnaire and an onboarding sequence where you fill out boxes and answer questions and stuff about what you want the newsletter to be and to consist of, and what it's for and who it's for. And then it comes back and says, here's a newsletter with these articles that fit what you're looking for. And of course, I put an article each time from me in there too.
Yep. Right.
And then it handles all the mailings and adding people and subtracting people if they want to get out off the mailing list and stuff like this. Takes care of all of that.
Nice.
So magically, this really high quality newsletter happens. Yep. And I can't wait to see it each week, right?
Nice.
Because they give it to me and say, "Is this okay?" Before we release it to your mailing list, is this okay? And every time it's like, I feel almost weird, because it's like, yeah, this is great. Run with this. Let me add this little piece from me, and then run with this. So that's an example of something that's working. People really like it. The open rate is outrageous. I like it. It's actually doing something that's of value to me, so I figure probably of value to other people. And it's done.
What's the name?
AI.
What's the name of that tool?
It's called daily.ai.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah,
but I love it where you're curating content. It's curating content for you. You're adding to it, and then it's valuable not only to the people on the list, but also to you. You're excited.
Yeah.
To see.
That was one of my criterion. I wanted it to be criteria. That's what I wanted it to be, something that I would look forward to seeing. And that you really had to convince me that could work, because we've all had different results with AI. And I was very specific about, I don't want it to write something. Not that it can. AI can do some amazing writing, but that's not what I was looking for. And so it sources all these great people, many of whom I've never heard of, who have these great resources on the web. So it highlights them. So it's great for them, right? It brings attention to them. It's great for me. I'm not taking their content and repurposing it as my content. I'm saying, hey, look, this is from Emanuel. He's got this incredible thing, this incredible resource. Check this out. And there's a little AI-generated summary of what the newsletter is suggesting they check out. So it's very helpful to kind of go through and do quick triage and say, oh, I want this, I don't want this, I want this. Click a button and you're there. So it's something I didn't know existed, something I didn't even know could exist, and it's working like gangbusters.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I love that.
I hope
approach.
I hope daily.ai hears this and then gives me a discount or something. I'm just saying.
Yeah. No, but it's a great example of how to properly source and implement AI, which is, here's this very defined challenge that I have. I'm going to go and test this thing. I'm always in the loop to make sure it's adequate and doing what I'm asking it to do, and then you're following it to make sure that it is getting the outcome, which is opens, clicks, etc. So. It's critical. AI first, human in the loop, manage your KPIs, and continue to innovate. That's
if I can add one other little piece here, because this directly illustrates something. One of the breakthroughs I teach in my book. My book is organized into 10 breakthroughs. Each one can change your life. You put them all together, and you've got this 10x superpower that is mind-blowing, that we were just talking about. But one of those breakthroughs is, as soon as you figure out that you want to do something impossible, and you commit to it, and your brain starts figuring stuff out, one of the things your brain's going to do is say, okay, now how the heck do I do this, right? And that's typically the wrong question. That's a question we've asked ourselves for years, but it can be useful in certain contexts. It's a great question, but that's the wrong question there. The right question there is, who can help me do it? Nice. Because if you're going to achieve the impossible, something you're incapable of now, you have to add to your capabilities. What's the easiest way to add to your capabilities? Get the capabilities of somebody else who already does what you need.
Absolutely.
And then collaborate with them. And there's a whole strategy for that. We talk about that in the book. But it's what I call who thinking. And that this comes from a number of different sources. Dan Sullivan's great at this. Dean Jackson's great at this. They teach this. But it's really profound. It changed my life when I started thinking that way, because my default is always, how do I, and then fill in the blanks. And it's no. Who can help you do this? And then when you get there, when you start thinking who instead of how, which is, I think, the name of one of the books that Dan has written, when you start thinking that, then you realize there is no limit to what I can do. I can do 10x, right? I can take my life from this level to this level. It's 10 times higher. I can do that. Yeah. But I can then go another 10x, and now it's 100. And then 100. So when I talk about 10x superpower, the x is never just a multiplier. It's an exponent. And the logo on my book and my actual company logo is 10 with the little exponent up there, because it's really about exponential growth, not just incremental growth.
Yeah, so you've laid out kind of this incremental steps in a system, and you're going to take the reader can take one part of their life, one desire, improve it, 10x it, and then apply that principle to other things in their life, maybe even simultaneously.
Oh yeah, and it will ripple through their life. So you take the one we were talking about a minute ago as an example, the golfing. If you wanted that and you committed to that and you started doing what you needed to do, maybe you found people who could help you, coaches, teachers, this kind of thing. People maybe who've done what you are talking about, who can tell you, yeah, it's doable. You just do X, Y, and Z. As you start in that direction, the rest of your life changes. One, you're having a blast at golf because you're feeling better than you ever felt before. Your relationships with anybody you play golf with change, right? Your health probably changes, because my guess is if you're going to be that good a golfer, one of the first things you're going to do is have to get in whatever shape you're in, and you may be in great shape because you're already a golfer. Whatever shape you're in, my guess is you're going to get in better shape. Right. So that ripples throughout your whole life, all because you've committed to this one impossible goal. And it touches everywhere. That's another piece of the magic here that's really neat. When you commit to something, it just lifts the whole life. Even though you're saying, okay, I'm focused on my business here, or I'm focused on my relationships here, everything else comes along with it.
Yeah, well, there's that principle of vitality, right? And then the brain has to have these big puzzles to work on in order for us to be vital. And so I love it that it ripples out into all the areas of our existence.
Yep.
Well, Keith, you and I could have this conversation, I think, for the rest of the day. I know you've got other things to do. Tell me how we can get in touch with you, and when the book comes out, and where are you? Where do you live on social and all that good stuff?
So I spend most of my time on social on LinkedIn. I used to work for LinkedIn, so it's just sort of in my DNA. But if you see my name on the screen, it's Keith Ellis. You just put a .com after that, and you can find me. And there you can go and actually there's a little blurb that describes what I'm trying to do here and kind of recaps some of the stuff we talked about and some additional stuff as well. And it invites people to book a call with me, which is really a coaching call. They get a chance to see whether this stuff that I'm spewing out here is any good for them. And I get a chance to see whether I want to work with them, because as you know so well, you reach a point in your career and you say, life is not long enough to want to work with people who are jerks. And so it's a mutual thing. Nobody's obligated to do anything, but I really start people off with essentially a free coaching session using these principles that we've been talking about, and give them a sort of a dose of what it would be like to be part of this program, which is what I call a superpower coaching program. So they can get that at keithellis.com. They can just sign up for that if they're interested.
I love it. And well, I'll take a look for the book on Amazon. There'll be information in the show notes for people can click through. And I really appreciate your gift to humanity, number one, with the book. And thanks for spending some time with me talking today. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me. Have a great holiday.
All right. Same
and
to
a
you.
great New Year. And,
all right.
You know,
thank you,
I just realized this might not be broadcast until the New Year. Sorry about that. You can fix it in post.
That's all right. Yeah. Well, you enjoy yourself. Have a great afternoon, and I'll catch up with you in a second.
All right. Thanks a lot, Emanuel.
Yeah. Well, what an amazing concept that the impossible is possible, and including having a great email newsletter. So check out daily.ai and check out my newest book on Amazon, which is about the art and science of prompt writing. And so I appreciate Keith was plugging that. He didn't even know. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emanuel on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.